That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, so we're going to try something a little bit different for this week's videos. Please let me know what you think about this. Instead of me going through and talking about just the must-start running backs in this video, and then having another video where we go through and talk about the must-bench running backs, we're going to combine the two. We're going to do this in one video. That way I can also go and make an extra one that, of course, I'm sure y'all have already seen on the channel. But yeah, before we get into it, what I need to do real quick before asking you to go down there, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell next to the subscribe button. That way you can make sure you're coming out to our live streams where I'm answering questions every single night. You know, we're live streaming every single night answering questions. I have to stall a little bit so I can pull up our recent YouTube video and give away some Fantasy Flock Network hats. So y'all know we've been giving away these hats every single day. Multiple hats are given away. I mean, I think that we're probably going to end up giving away a little over 500 by the time it's all said and done. So, of course, we're going to have to start shipping those out this weekend. But let me pull up some random comments. Every time you leave a comment on a YouTube video, it doesn't matter what it is, you are entered in to win a Fantasy Flock Network hat. And our first comment going to come from Gonzalez Joshua 07, who says, "Thanks for the content, bro. I'm 2-0 in my leagues so far. Flock up." Happy that you're 2-0 in your leagues. Congrats, my friend. And then our next one coming out from, let's go with John, says, "I love this channel more than I love Derrick Henry in my non-PPR league." Oh yeah, Derrick Henry in a non-PPR league. That must be ridiculous. So John Mallet, you are going to be winning a Flock hat. Thank you, of course, for dropping a comment on the video. Thank you so much for being subscribed to the channel and supporting the show. So all you have to do is make sure you go over and go to the description of the video, send me an email from that YouTube account you left the comment with, and say, "Hey Mason, here's my address. Send me that hat, you bum," and I'll get that out for you ASAP. And yeah, let's go through and let's talk about some wide receivers here. In this video, well, let's start it off with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin as a must-start wide receivers this week. Now, yes, they're going up against the Los Angeles Rams, and I will say the Rams DST is going to be the most difficult matchup for this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team yet. I mean, while yes, it's hard to say anything bad about Tom Brady, while yes, it's very hard to just go through and say that this offense is going to see any regression whatsoever, we do have to acknowledge the fact that, I mean, with Tampa here, they've played Dallas and Atlanta so far. Now, with this being said, yes, it's going to be a much tougher matchup. Yes, one of these wide receivers will have to go up against Jalen Ramsey, and I'm honestly kind of assuming that's going to be Mike Evans here. But Antonio Brown on the COVID list, this is telling us that, I mean, hell, there are just going to be so much targets getting funneled to Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, as well as Rob Gronkowski. I mean, this past week, we already got a decent feel of what a game where Antonio Brown is kind of taken out, what that kind of looks like for the combination of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And the upside for both wide receivers is just too damn massive. And I know a lot of people really get worried whenever you have Jalen Ramsey lining up against a star wide receiver and they want to be just overthinking it and benching them. And I'll say, of course, you have to lower your expectations for Mike Evans, considering the fact that if he does have that tough matchup, maybe they go a little bit more leaning on Chris Godwin and Rob Gronkowski. But at the end of the day, Mike Evans is Mike Evans. Tom Brady is Tom Brady. We know that Vegas is still having the Tampa Bay Buccaneers projected to score an insane amount of points. It's just going to be funneled through these two wide receivers. So yeah, you are having to start both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Now, our next wide receiver is going to be someone that I hated in drafts, but it doesn't matter. He's in a different situation now. Cortland Sutton going up against the New York Jets. Now, I'll say one thing. Somehow the Denver Broncos are favored here by 10.5 points. That seems ridiculous. I mean, Vegas is projecting that the Denver Broncos are going to boat race the New York Jets. And I'd imagine that would have to kind of be through just say Cortland Sutton getting a decent amount of production at the beginning of the game, or maybe they can lean on the run in the second half, but they're going to have to get that lead somehow. It's going to be through Cortland Sutton. Cortland Sutton was a baller this past week. I mean, if you're looking at the stats for Cortland Sutton, you're seeing that he was a top fantasy wide receiver just this past week with no Jerry Jeudy in this offense. We know that no Jerry Jeudy means that, I mean, Cortland Sutton, all of a sudden, the wide receiver one, really only competing for targets with Noah Fant on this offense. KJ Hamler will be stretching that field. Tim Patrick will be playing a very small role. But I think that this is going to be a clear must-start option every single week that Jerry Jeudy is out. I mean, I actually have Cortland Sutton ranked as our wide receiver 17 this week, ahead of multiple stud wide receivers that you'd be surprised to see. So yeah, Cortland Sutton, you're going to have to start him, plus matchup, and also just looks like a bona fide stud. We know that he has the frame where he can see a decent amount of touchdown upside at the same time, and the volume's already there. So yeah, we definitely want to be starting Cortland Sutton. And now our next guy, he was on our must-start wide receiver list this past week. We're going to put him on there again. Let's go Mike Williams, Los Angeles Chargers, going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm expecting that this game is going to be very high scoring. I mean, you have had the Kansas City Chiefs defense honestly not look that good through the first 2 weeks. I mean, we all just saw Baltimore put up a decent amount of points against the Kansas City Chiefs. Week 1, I mean, the Cleveland Browns got out to a major lead at the beginning of the game as well. I think you could expect that this Los Angeles Chargers team just comes out, drops 30 points on the Kansas City Chiefs. And what I really like to see from Mike Williams is the fact that he is not now a wide receiver that's only getting used as a deep threat. Instead, he's a wide receiver that's getting used at every level of the football field. That's the number one thing that you were looking for with Mike Williams, wanting to make sure that he was just getting used all around. That way you could have a higher floor rather than just the high ceiling. But now he does have that really nice combination. So really like going through and planning on starting Mike Williams here. Now our next wide receiver, he had a very disappointing week this past week. Honestly, I will be overlooking it because the matchup is fantastic. This is going to be Devonte Smith going up against the Dallas Cowboys. And with Devonte Smith, I mean, we have to go back, look at what happened with this overall Philadelphia Eagles offense in week 1. And we can acknowledge the fact that, yes, they're not going to be putting up the same amount of production that they did in week 1. And if they are, mainly it's going to be through the ground, given the fact that with Jalen Hurts, like we've always said, we love Jalen Hurts in fantasy, not necessarily because the passing volume that he provides, but more so the rushing upside that he does. So here, I think that you do have to just go through and look at it in a completely different light than you would a regular offense, knowing that even if Devonte Smith is the wide receiver 1 here, the target number is not going to necessarily be 9 targets a game, but it honestly doesn't even really matter. I mean, you look at Devonte Smith, he can still be a very efficient wide receiver, especially against a very bad defense in the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, against Dallas, we were saying that you wanted to be jamming in Mike Williams this past week. I see no difference here in playing Devonte Smith. He will be a wide receiver we're trying to get in almost every single lineup. And our last guy is going to be more so an honorable mention. I definitely think that there will be a considerable amount of y'all that will have him on your bench, but I just want to be on the record in saying that he's going to be a lot more interesting now than what we had him at before. And this is Michael Pittman going up against the Tennessee Titans. And I'll say with Michael Pittman, we're probably not viewing him as a must-start option this week if Carson Wentz does miss this game. So, of course, we're going to have to monitor the Carson Wentz situation. But I think we kind of got a grasp of what Michael Pittman could be this past week. And what we need to be focusing in on is the health of Paris Campbell and the health of Carson Wentz. So this is more so an honorable mention because I want to bring him up in a video. That way we can just have an official take. You don't need me to tell you to go start A.J. Brown. Obviously, you're starting A.J. Brown. He's a bona fide stud. And instead, let's just focus in on what Michael Pittman did this past week and understand the context that that production was with. And understand that I think that if you do have Curtis Samuel coming back, the target share should go down, as well as if Carson Wentz is out, then all of a sudden, I mean, this overall offense is going to be a lot less productive. So it mainly comes down to, do we get Carson Wentz? Do we get Paris Campbell? If we get Carson Wentz, no Paris Campbell, Michael Pittman is a must-start option. If we get Paris Campbell, no Carson Wentz, then Michael Pittman is a must-bench option. So I definitely just want to be on record. That way, y'all don't necessarily have to be asking me the same questions every single night in the live stream, because I know we're going to get a lot of questions centered around Michael Pittman. And now let's go over to 5 must-bench wide receivers. These are going to be guys that I know we're getting a lot of questions about this week, and I just want to have my opinion on the record. And our first guy, we're going out on a limb here. You know, it's risky for us to ever talk about someone playing on a Thursday night just because, I mean, if it goes completely against what we said, then everybody's going to be laughing at us down in the comment section. But I encourage you, go through and laugh away. Let's talk about Brandon Cooks here going up against the Carolina Panthers. Now, Carolina has had a fantastic defense so far this year. I mean, with Carolina, you saw them shutting down the New York Jets, and yes, it was the New York Jets, but still, I mean, then the following week, they go and look at 5 touchdown passing and 0 interception throwing Jameis Winston, and they go, hey, Jameis, no, you're still the same old guy you've always been, and they shut down the New Orleans Saints. Now, going up against the Houston Texans, it's not that I'm just deathly afraid of the Carolina Panthers defense. It's more centered around the fact that Carolina's been more impressive than we initially wanted to give them credit for, but mainly that Davis Mills is the starting quarterback here for the Houston Texans. Now, buckle up and get ready for all these fancy terms. Just get ready for this deep level analysis here with Davis Mills. I don't know exactly how many of y'all spent a lot of time going through this NFL draft class and really diving in depth with these rookies, but Davis Mills is a very bad NFL quarterback. He is going to be the worst starting quarterback of this entire week. I want nothing to do with this Houston Texans situation. Now, yes, Brandon Cooks has been fantastic with his production through the first 2 weeks, but if you look at week 2, Brandon Cooks actually got the majority of that production in the first half when Tyrod Taylor was healthy. Once Davis Mills took over, this offense looked way worse than it had with Tyrod Taylor. So yeah, we are going to be going through and benching Brandon Cooks where we can. Of course, you can't be just rolling out and starting DJ Chark over Brandon Cooks, but I think that you at least have to be trying to find some better options. And now our next wide receiver on our must bench wide receiver list. We're going to get some hate for it, and I'll say he's a very talented option, but I just don't necessarily want to buy in just quite yet. It's going to be Rondell Moore here. And with Rondell Moore, I will say, yes, he is extremely talented. I mean, going back to this NFL draft class, I mean, everybody was making fun of me this offseason for how much I loved Rondell Moore, given his freshman season production at Purdue, which was just off the charts. The age-adjusted production was historic for Rondell Moore. And then he gets to the NFL Combine. And I know a lot of people want to talk about the athletic profile for Rondell Moore. I mean, Thomas, if you have that vertical video saved to your computer, throw it up here as well, just to show people what a freak athlete Rondell Moore actually is. But the problem is with Rondell here that he's not playing a full slate of snaps for this Arizona Cardinals offense just yet. AJ Green still is out there for ridiculous amount of routes, and Rondell Moore only played 47% of the snaps for this Arizona Cardinals passing offense this past week. Now, with Rondell Moore, he never needs to turn into a 90% snap player, just given the fact that he will be drawing targets at a higher rate on a per snap basis than a lot of other wide receivers, because when he's on the field, he's not on the field to be a run blocker. He's on the field to be someone that is drawing targets at a high rate. And one other thing I want to focus in on is the fact with Rondell Moore that a significant amount of the production that he saw this past week actually came from that one busted play. And if it's from that one busted play, I know a lot of people just want to be looking at the final fantasy finish on the week and just go, oh my God, Rondell Moore, the breakouts here. This is Justin Jefferson. I would prefer to wait one more week. We also have to look at the fact that DeAndre Hopkins had a slight down week for DeAndre Hopkins himself with the amount of yards that he was able to accumulate in this offense. I think that this actually maybe slides a little bit more over to DeAndre Hopkins this week. Maybe they can lean on the run a little bit more in what should be a not competitive game against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I mean, imagine that we have the Arizona Cardinals coming out and just crushing the Jags. So we've had a ton of questions in the live stream saying, oh, should I be starting Rondell Moore or should I go start instead Davonte Smith? And every time I'm like, no, honestly, you don't want to be starting Rondell. He's a player that we want to be avoiding for this week, even though he was fantastic and even though you definitely want him on your roster for the long term for whenever his role expands in this offense. Until we see that role truly expand, I think we are just going to be fine benching Rondell Moore in week 3. Now, our next wide receiver will be Sterling Shepard going up against the Atlanta Falcons here. Sterling Shepard, a highly productive option through the first 2 weeks. And I mean, I already went through and showed y'all exactly how many teams I drafted Sterling Shepard on with all those best ball formats that we were doing before the season. I have Sterling Shepard in a tremendous amount of leagues. But you have to be realistic with what we're going to have from Sterling Shepard. Now, I'm putting Sterling Shepard on this list with a couple asterisks next to this, and this is operating under the assumption that Evan Ingram is back and healthy. And what this would lead to is this would lead to a situation where the target squeeze is real for Sterling Shepard, where we've already talked about this at length, so I'll keep it brief. But Kenny Goliday just 1 week further away from that injury, 1 week further in having that development with the overall coaching staff, as well as Daniel Jones, more importantly, as well as Saquon Barkley, 1 week further from his own injury, 10 days of rest. You'd imagine that they're taking the training wheels off sometime soon for Saquon Barkley. I'd imagine this happens this week against the Atlanta Falcons. To go along with this, Kadarius Toney at some point is going to get used in this offense. So with all of these factors, with the fact that you should have Kenny Goliday expanding his target share, you should have Evan Ingram coming back so they finally have a tight end on this team. You should have Saquon Barkley beginning to get used in the receiving game out of the backfield. I think that will put on an overall target squeeze for Sterling Shepard. I'm including him on this list because I know it's a great matchup against the Atlanta Falcons, and a lot of people are viewing Sterling Shepard as a must-start player based on his production over the past 2 weeks. But I just want to throw a little bit of water on the fire. I want to just be the wet blanket of the party here and saying that even though Rondell Moore and Sterling Shepard have looked fantastic, I don't necessarily know if we can go through, start them with confidence. And now our next wide receiver will be Jalen Waddle. And with Jalen Waddle, I've actually told some people to go through and drop Jalen Waddle for Rondell Moore in return. Tua Tagovailoa has actually been completely ruled out with the fractured ribs for week 3. So yeah, I mean, at this point, you're just looking at the Miami Dolphins. You're just saying there's a 0% chance that you want to be starting Jalen Waddle. Will Fuller has already been ruled that he will play in this game. I mean, with Tua Tagovailoa gone as well, this is just a no-fly zone for Jalen Waddle going up against Las Vegas. This will be a game that I think, you're going to see the overall Miami Dolphins offense continue to struggle. Now, no, they're not going to be scoring 0 points as they did against the Buffalo Bills. The Las Vegas Raiders don't have a defense nearly that good. But I'd be fine going through and dropping Jalen Waddle to pick up Rondell Moore for the long term, knowing that they are similar players in my eyes. And as well, you just have Rondell Moore in a significantly better offense. But however you cut it, Jalen Waddle cannot be a player that you're starting this week. Now, our next wide receiver on this list will be someone that we had on our list this past week. And this is going to be, I hate to say it, Brandon Ayuk yet again. We are keeping our stance on Brandon Ayuk. He is not healthy. You cannot start him until we see otherwise. Now, with Brandon Ayuk, once we get the breakout, once we get him coming out and getting 6 targets in a week, then we can completely change our stance. But clearly through the first 2 weeks, he's being used as a decoy. I'd rather just wait, even though this is a matchup going up against the Green Bay Packers that you would possibly expect this to be a little higher scoring, where the 49ers may have to lean on the pass. Still, you can't get suckered into Brandon Ayuk, just like we said last week. You have to be benching him everywhere. And now to go through and grab an honorable mention for y'all for both a must-start player as well as a must-bench player, I think going over to Los Angeles with Robert Woods and the Rams. We've had some people coming out as of late just a little worried about Robert Woods. I'm not worried whatsoever. Please do not be panicking. This will be a game that the Rams are going to have to definitely lean on the pass, as we know the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have an elite defense, as well as the injury to Darrell Henderson. You're going to see Stafford throwing the ball over and over and over and over again. You should see some Cooper Kupp regression coming sometime soon. So here I think we would prefer to just start Robert Woods in every league that you have him without really even thinking about it. And now another spot that I think we can call an honorable mention for a must-bench player. I hate to say this, but I think at this point, viewing someone like Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown has looked great so far, but the problem is he's going up against Detroit. I think this is a game that you actually have the Ravens deciding to just lean on the run. So Hollywood Brown, I will say that I'm not expecting the same level of production that he had against the Kansas City Chiefs, knowing that the Ravens have to aggressively push the ball down the field when they are going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. Not expecting a similar game plan against the Detroit Lions, so Hollywood is an honorable mention for someone that I think we should consider benching here. But yeah, that's all I got for y'all. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I really hope you got something from it. And of course, go down there, drop that like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. And that's all I got for you, and have a great day.